Hello, welcome to the very last video in our beginner clarinet series. This very last video is going to be about air and articulation. I mentioned air a little bit when we were talking about embouchure and tongue position, but because we're going to be talking specifically about articulation today, it pairs really well with air because you can't articulate on clarinet unless you're moving the air properly. So in order to move the air through the instrument, first of all, you have to get air into your body. So the way we want to make sure that we do that is by breathing as low as possible. So I want you to put your hand on your stomach, down near your waistband, whatever pants you're wearing today. Make sure that when you breathe in, your hand goes out. You should feel an expansion not only on the front of your stomach, but maybe also a little bit on the back. When you breathe in, your lungs actually expand further in the back than they do in the front. So you might actually feel a little bit of a stretch in your lower back as well as in your stomach. So when you breathe in, you want to make sure that you fill from the bottom and that you feel this expansion in the lower part of your torso. And the very last thing that happens is your shoulders maybe rise just a little bit, but you shouldn't be breathing like this. If you breathe like this, there's going to be lots of tension in the top of your chest and your upper back, which is going to transfer down your shoulders into your arms, and then you're going to be able to move your hands and you're not going to get a lot of air. It's a bad scene. So make sure when you breathe, you're sitting comfortably in your chair and you can feel that expansion low around your hips. You can feel you're sort of artificially making your pants tighter by breathing in a nice, comfortable, big way. You want to make sure that you're expanding out front and you're expanding a little bit in the back. And then when you do play the instrument, you want to make sure that you're squeezing all of the air out. So use your abs, use the muscles that are around, called the intercostals, that are around your rib cage, to squeeze all of the air and move it quickly into the instrument. If you take a shallow little breath and go, and then try to go, that's about all the air you're going to get. And it's going to be real hard to play clarinet. But if you take a nice deep low breath and go, and then try to play clarinet and go, you can go for a while. So when you do actually move the instrument or air through the instrument, your stomach should stay expanded. You don't want to collapse in on yourself, because then when you need to take another breath, you have to rebuild and reposture yourself. So make sure you're sitting up comfortably straight, and when you breathe, you should feel that expansion. And then when you move air into the instrument, you should actually sort of feel like you're pressing down into the chair. You want to leave your stomach expanded as much as you can and move the air that way instead of crunching down on yourself to get air out of the instrument. So one of the first things you should try is pick a note. I'm going to play an open G because it's nice and easy. I'm going to take a nice deep breath and I'm going to see how long I can get it to last with a good sound. So if you move the air, if you keep that air supported, if you keep squeezing and you keep your stomach expanded while you're playing, people won't actually be able to hear that you're running out of air. If you keep the support the same, it doesn't matter if you have less air, the tone quality shouldn't suffer. So let's see how long I can do this. And if you noticed, even though I was getting near the end of my breath and I was running out of air, you didn't hear the sound start to get thinner or start to get shaky, which can sometimes happen if you're not supporting the air and you're running out of air. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to combine that now with articulation. When you articulate on the clarinet, when you separate notes or you separate sounds with your tongue, you want to take the tip of your tongue and touch it to the tip of the reed. Nothing changes about the air. You do not have to start and stop the air. What you're ending up doing is you're starting and stopping the vibration of the reed. And it doesn't take a lot of pressure. Really, you're just interrupting the vibration ever so slightly. So all you have to do is touch the tip of your tongue to the tip of the reed just a little bit. So remember, the vowel sound that we always make as clarinet players is E. So when you're articulating, you just have to add a consonant to the beginning of that. So change E to T when you're playing. So take a nice deep breath, and then on an open G, just play T, T, T 3 times, 5 times, something. So there was nothing about the air that was changing. The air continued to flow. I just stopped the reed from vibrating, which stops the sound temporarily. So again, you want to make sure you're touching the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. You might not be totally aware of what's going on inside your mouth while you're doing that. So one thing you can do is called the bumblebee test. So what I want you to do is, again, play an open G and get your tongue really close to the tip of the reed, but just kind of hover it over it, just like a bumblebee would hover over a flower. And you'll hear that there's sort of a buzzing noise when I get my tongue really close, but don't actually touch the reed entirely. And I can actually feel a little bit of a tickle on the edge of my tongue because the reed's vibrating back and forth and I'm just touching my tongue to it. That's where your tongue should touch the reed. If you touch your tongue further down on the reed, you can hear, first of all, the tone suffers a little bit. It kind of goes down a little bit because I have to drop my jaw to get my tongue down that far, and it goes kind of all a little bit, and it's not super accurate. It's kind of clumsy when I'm going thung, th, right? So make sure you're saying T all the time. The tip of the tongue hits the tip of the reed for T, T, T. Another way to visualize it is get up close personal with a mirror and look. Make the face that you make when you're blowing through a tiny little straw and see if you can just make your tongue appear just a little bit, just like you're spitting out a watermelon seed or a grain of rice. That's what you want your tongue to be doing, just touching the very tip of the mouthpiece. That way, when you're needing to move faster, if you have to articulate something quickly, if you use a lot of the air and are just gently touching the tip of the mouthpiece, or tip of the reed, sorry, it's right where it needs to be when you need it. So the trick to articulation is always make sure that you're using plenty of good supported air. So make sure you're feeling that squeeze in your lower torso and making sure that you're just touching the tip of your tongue to the tip of the reed. You do not have to slam it in there. You just have to say T, 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 T very gently on the tip of the reed. I hope these videos have been helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful time learning to play the clarinet.